Shalom Aleichem, everyone. Tonight we're going to continue Gemara Masechet Berachot from where we left off last time. We answered some questions in a preview shiur, but here we have tonight's Gemara shiur. It's on Daf Lamed Yud Aleph Amud Bet 11B-3. There is a break in 11B-3. It starts with Tanan Hatam. We learned over there. Let's go. Share screen. Gemara 11B-3 Tanan Hatam. Everyone with me? Let's go. Tanan Hatam. We learned in a Mishnah in Masechet Tamid. In Masechet Tamid, it talks about the korbanot services that are brought every morning by our Kohanim. Any Kohanim in the room? No Kohanim in the room. We probably have some in the Zoom. I see Rani Aziz. So we have every morning, there's a different shift of Kohanim. They come in for a week of service. Then next week, another group of Kohanim come in, another family. The next week, another family. How many families are there? There's 24. Each group, each family is called a Mishmar. Very good. It's called a Mishmar. So we're going to talk about each week what the Kohanim do in the morning. So the first thing is they start getting the Korban Tamid ready, and they have so many things to do that they don't have enough time to pray a full prayer. They should just come to Sha'ar Rachamim. There'll be time for everything after that. It's just like 15 minutes. You get Shacharit. I'm kidding, but half kidding. But they didn't have time to go into the prayers and to do everything because they had to do the service of the day. So they would keep things very short. Tanan Hatam. We learned in the Mishnah. This is in the morning. Amar lahem hamemuneh. The Segana Kohanim. There was a deputy high priest, not the Kohen Gadol, but the second, would tell all the Kohanim of that family, of that Mishmar, Barachu beracha achat. Everyone make one beracha. V'hem berachu. And they made that beracha. So the Gemara is going to say, well, what beracha are you talking about? But first he says, everyone go ahead, make the beracha. And then they make the beracha. V'karu Aseret HaDibrot. And they read the 10 Commandments. Oh, Aseret HaDibrot, very important. They read the 10 Commandments. Shema, they say Shema Yisrael. V'hayayim shamoa, the second paragraph. Vayomer, they say the third paragraph of Shema. Uberachu et ha'am shalosh berachot. And then they make a beracha with the rest of the nation. They make 3 berachot with the people. There's 3 berachot that they say. Emet v'yatziv, which is the beracha after Shema. Va'avodah. Avodah is the beracha of Ritzeh. Ritzeh Hashem. They skip the entire Amidah. They go straight to Ritzeh. And there's some that say they actually have an even shortened version of Ritzeh, like a one-liner. But they say the beracha of Ritzeh. What is the beracha of Ritzeh about? Hashem, please accept our avodah, our service. Please accept it. Ritzeh Hashem, what that means is all of the korbanot that we're bringing, please accept. So it makes sense that they make that beracha. Uberkat Kohanim, and they make the beracha of Berkat Kohanim. What is that? Machloket, different opinions. There's a lot of opinions, but one of the opinions is that they do Berkat Kohanim. Okay, these are Kohanim, right? And the Kohanim, there are people there. So they put their hands up and they say, They do the Berkat Kohanim. There's different opinions. Some say that this is a beracha that the Kohanim say with their arms up. Some say no, they just say the words. They read the psukim, chik-chak. Some say this is actually referring to the beracha of Sim Shalom. They call Sim Shalom the beracha of Berkat Kohanim because it comes right after the Berkat Kohanim. Some say it's a combo. They say Berkat Kohanim and Sim Shalom. There's a lot of opinions. We'll look at it in a second. But so far, this is what happens in the morning. These Kohanim, they go, they get things ready, they start doing the korbanot, and then the Memuneh tells them, guys, everyone make a beracha. They make the beracha. He says, okay, you see it? 10 Commandments. Good. Shema, V'haya, Vayomer. 3 berachot. Emet v'yatziv. Avodah, Sim Shalom, or Berkat Kohanim, whatever that is. Ubeshabbat, and on Shabbat, Mosifim Beracha Achat, the Mishmar HaYotzeh. There is one more beracha that they say on Shabbat because that's the change of the shift of the Mishmar. When you have a Mishmar, remember the Mishmar is they have a 1-week duty. So they finish their service with Musaf. They do Shacharit and Musaf of Shabbat, and then they go to the next one. So after they say one beracha to the team that's leaving and the team that's coming in, they do a handoff, and there's a beracha that goes on Shabbat during Musaf. Okay, so we're gonna read what that is. Okay, so far with me. So quick recap: what happens? The Memuneh, the deputy Kohen Gadol, tells them everyone make one beracha, and then they make the beracha. say 10 commandments, say Shema v'haya im shamo, emet v'yatziv, and then they say avodah, which is the beracha of recite, is do Berachot Kohanim, and then on Shabbat there's one more. So at the beginning when it says say one beracha, which beracha are you talking about? What beracha do they say? That's what the Gemara is going to ask him. My beracha achat. What is the single beracha that they say? Kihad Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Yosef bar Abba, ikla'u lahu atra. So once Rabbi Abba and Rabbi Yosef, they went and they visited somewhere, and they didn't know the answer. So they would go, they would visit a different yeshiva, and they would come into the yeshiva from a different town. They say, can we ask you some questions that we don't know? They say, sure. And they asked them, Ba'u minayu, they asked them, my beracha achat, this Mishnah that says they would say one beracha, what was the one beracha? Lav hava biyadayu. The yeshiva said, we don't know. So va'atu shailu al Rav Matna. So then they went and they asked Rav Matna, another rabbi. Lo hava biyadayu. He didn't know. What beracha is this? Atu shailu al Rav Yehuda. They asked Rav Yehuda. Amar lahu. So Rav Yehuda had the answer. Hachi amar Shmuel. He said Shmuel says ahava rabbah. Is the beracha of ahava rabbah, which is what we Sfaradim say is ahavat olam. So what is the beracha of ahavat olam? Which beracha is that? Sorry? Right before Shema. It's the second beracha that's before Shema. Okay? What did we say last time about the beracha of ahava rabbah? What was it unique about? What was unique about it? Sorry? The ahava rabbah version of it is Ashkenaz, but the text, the content.
It encompasses the berachot of Torah.
It encompasses the berachot of Torah. Exactly. It's exactly what, and that's actually how this whole conversation started. The whole conversation, the Mishnah said, in the morning you have to make a beracha before, two berachot before, one of them being ahava rabbah. So we're talking about Torah. And so then we said, oh, you want to talk about Torah? Let's talk about Bekat Torah. Then we went into that topic. Now we go back. And the Mishnah says they would say one beracha. We said, what one beracha is that? And it says ahava rabbah. Okay, now you know why this Mishnah is being discussed here, because this is where we're getting introduced to the beracha of ahava rabbah. And now it also makes sense why you would say this beracha, because presumably they've been working so hard in the morning they didn't even get a chance to say Berachot Torah. So this is like doubling and counting as their Berachot Torah. Okay, so they said one beracha. Which one? Ahava rabbah. The Amar Rabbi Zrika, Amar Rabbi Ameh, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Yotzer or machloket. Actually, Reish Lakish says, Rabbi Zreika quotes Reish Lakish, but it's not the beracha of ahavat olam, but it's the first one of Yotzer or Berach Choshech, Oseh Shalom Redekol, Hamei Ela Seradim, right? Baruch Hashem, Yotzer Hameorot. The first beracha before. So you get what's happening before they say the Shema Yisrael. Actually, before they say the Aseret HaDibrot, there's two berachot that you say before Shema. It's a machloket. One opinion, Shmuel says. They said ahavat olam, the second beracha, and Reish Lakish says the first one, Yotzer or. Yes. The reason behind it is that they were minimizing the tefillah to the actual minimum that was required for them to say. These Kohanim were so busy, they didn't pray the Amidah. Why there's a machloket? So let's see why there would be a machloket here. Ki ata Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef, Amar. Once Rabbi Yitzchak came and he said, guys, you want to hear something? You know how Rabbi Zereka said, that Rabbi Ami said, that Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said, Yotzer or? Ilan's question of like, why would you say that? You know how Rabbi Zereka said that? The Rabbi Zereka, lav beferush itmar. What Rabbi Zereka is telling you, Reish Lakish never said that explicitly. He didn't stand up in shiur once and say, do you know what this Mishnah means? When it says they made one beracha, it means Yotzer or. That never happened, says Rabbi Yitzchak. Ela michlala itmar. It was something that Rabbi Zreika inferred from something else that what Reish Lakish said. Which means, Reish Lakish said something about this Mishnah. This Mishnah that says in the morning they made what the deputy Kohen Gadol says, make one beracha. Okay, Reish Lakish said something about that, and Rabbi Zereka says, it must be that he meant Yotzer or. What happened? Amar Rabbi Zereka, Amar Rabbi Ameh, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Rabbi Zereka quotes that really what Reish Lakish said is, Zot omeret, this means, berachot ein me'akvot zo et zo. This means that berachot are not essential for each other. Excuse me. In me'akvot zo et zo means they don't hold each other back, which means if you don't say one of the berachot, the other beracha is fine on its own. Okay? How would you translate that? I would say they don't disqualify each other. They're not essential to each other. How do they translate it in the art scroll? They're not essential to each other. They're mutually exclusive is another way of saying it. Okay? So get what happened is like this. Shmuel, okay, the Kohen says everyone make one beracha. Shmuel says it's talking about Ahavat Olam. Reish Lakish doesn't comment on what it is, but what Reish Lakish does say is, oh, he said make one beracha. You know what that means? That means the berachot don't disqualify each other. Because if the berachot would disqualify each other, then you wouldn't say any. You can't go in saying I'm only going to say one. You can't go in saying I'm only going to say one. It's all or nothing. The very fact that they said only one beracha, Reish Lakish says that means that they're mutually exclusive. Okay. Now somehow from that, Rabbi Zreika extracted that Reish Lakish was saying Yotzer Or. How do you get that from that? So the Gemara is going to ask this question. Okay, so Amrat Bishlema Yotzer Or Havu Amre. If Reish Lakish holds that when they said say one bracha, they were saying the bracha of Yotzer Or, the first bracha, Hainu the brachot in me'akvot zo zo. That's why he says, look, the brachot are mutually exclusive because you say the first one, the lo ka'amri ava rabba, and they don't say ava rabba. They're only saying one, and that's fine. Going in, you know you're only going to say one. So everything fits well, but Ella, now we're turning to Yubed Amud Bet Aleph. Yubed Amud Aleph 12A 1. Ella I Amrat. If you say Ahava Rabba Havu Amre, if the one bracha that they would say is the bracha of Ahava Rabba, my brachot in me'akvot zo. Why would Reish Lakish learn from there that the brachot are mutually exclusive? That if you say only one, that it's not disqualified. Dilma, maybe, they didn't say Yotzer Or yet. Mishum delo mata zman Yotzer Or, because the light has not risen yet. Meaning, these Kohanim are up very early, they're doing the service very early, and they want to do these brachot, and they say the bracha of Avar Rabba, almost like a bracha of the Torah, before they say the Ten Commandments, before they do these things, which is going to be Torah study. So because of that, they're not ready to say Yotzer Or. Right? So maybe the reason they didn't say Yotzer Or because the time of Yotzer Or, the light hasn't risen yet. But then later, when the sun rises, they do say it. They say Shema, fine, but Reish Lakish's statement was, oh, you see, they only said one bracha. That means you're allowed to only pick one. The Gemara says, hold on. If the one, this is what Reish Lakish is thinking. If the only one was Ahava Rabba, who said you're not going to say Yotzer Or later? Maybe you're going to say Yotzer Or in a half hour from now, in 2 hours from now. After you start bringing the korbanot on your way out, then you say it. And then really, you're saying both of them. So the fact that Reish Lakish says, you see, it's possible that you only do one beracha and you drop the other one and it's fine. So that must mean that he is thinking about Yotzer Or. Because if he was thinking about Ahava Rabba, then it could simply be just the time of Yotzer Or hasn't come yet. He's saying the berachot piecemeal. He's saying Birkat Torah first, like what I said earlier. He's saying the Birkat Torah first, and then he's going to go back and say Yotzer Or, and then he fulfilled his obligation by saying both. That's the inference that Rabbi Zreika is making about Reish Lakish. Hold on a second. And the Gemara says, I got it. Shmuel says, Ahava Rabba. Reish Lakish doesn't explicitly say Yotzer Or, but that's what Rabbi Zreika learns from him. So the Gemara says, what do I care if he said it or if he said something else and I infer from it? What do I care? Okay, it's a machloket. The Gemara says, no. Because if it's an inference and Reish Lakish never actually said it, that means Rabbi Zreika could be disproved. I could disprove Rabbi Zreika, and I could say even Reish Lakish holds the single bracha that they made was Ahava Rabba. And then they would go ahead and say Yotzer Or later. They would say Ahava Rabba in the morning. They would then say the Shema Yisrael, say all of the whatever they would say. Then later in the day they would say Yotzer Or. Umay berachot ein me'akvot zo et zo. So what did Reish Lakish mean when he said the berachot are mutually exclusive? Said their berachot, meaning the order is exclusive, meaning it's possible for you to say number 2 first, and then later say number 1. That's all Reish Lakish was learning out from here. It's a bit nuanced and detailed, but I don't want us to get bogged down by the details because there's a lot more to get into here. But essentially, we had what we thought was a machloket, but the Gemara essentially disproves it and says the beracha that they would say before the Kohanim in the morning when they were very busy because they were doing the service, they wouldn't do a whole tefillah. They would only make one beracha. Which one was that? The beracha of avaraba or avat olam. Why? Because it doubles. It counts as a beracha of Shema and it counts as a beracha of Birkat Torah. Okay? Good? Question. We never said that. Okay, so when did we say that there's a time for Yotzer Or? Okay, so the assumption here, a very good question, Ilan is saying, implicit in this whole Gemara is that there's a time to say Yotzer Or later, and it's not before. When did we say that? It seems like what we're saying is that would go by the time of, let's say, dawn, or the time of Mishiyakir, or something. You can't say the beracha of Yotzer Or at 2 a.m., for example, okay? But what we are saying is, let's say you wake up at 2 a.m., you could say the beracha of Torah at 2 a.m. Let's say you get up at that. You can say Shema, you just haven't fulfilled your mitzvah of Shema. But you can. It sounds like if the time of Yotzer Or has not reached yet, the time of Shema Yisrael hasn't been reached yet, which means the Shema Yisrael that they're saying now is not fulfilling the mitzvah. They're going to have to repeat it. I agree with that. That's you guys follow that line of thought? I agree with that line of thought. If you're going to say that the reason they didn't say Yotzer Or is because the time hasn't come yet, then the time of Shema hasn't come yet, so they're really just fulfilling, this is the minimum that they have to say, including the Shema Yisrael, they're not fulfilling the mitzvah of Shema Yisrael. Very good. And even if they don't say Shema, it's okay. You know why? They're not learning Torah, they're doing something else. After that, what are they doing? They're doing the korbanot. So if they don't get to say the mitzvah of Shema Yisrael because they're doing korbanot, is that okay? Let's say the Kohanim are so busy with the korbanot. Okay, I know you want to say a phrase. Say. Osek b'mitzvah, patur min mitzvah. Very good. So, Ilan, to your point, it could be they're so busy with doing the avodah, they're just saying this minimum amount when they can. They have a small crack in the day, but it's not even daytime yet. So they're not even fulfilling the mitzvah of Shema yet. And if they have time to do it later, they will. And if they don't, it's okay because of second mitzvah, patur min mitzvah. That was the whole concept that we learned, that you say Shema Yisrael b'shivtecha bebetecha when you're sitting in your own home, but not if you're involved with the mitzvah. Correct. So that's why they have a shortened version. Their tefillah is 2 berachot. They're saying everything very short.
Theoretically, though, they could do al-harabah like the second before the proper.
Correct.
Not in the second it hits.
It could be.
It
could be. It could be.
So it's not necessarily that.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. But just the fact that the Gemara is saying this over here, it says it's possible that even according to Reish Lakish, you're going to say beracha v'avarabah now. You're going to say Yotzer Or later when the time comes.
Yeah, but if we, like I said,
like seconds.
Ends,
yeah, you're talking about like.
Shema,
That could be. It could be that you're talking about like actually like to the minute things are scheduled. Okay, very good. Yeah. Okay, very good. Mr. Koren, I just saw your chat. Writing notes is enough to say bracha. We said someone who is writing Torah has to say bracha. That was what we did in the previous recording. Yes.
Like going back to this whole thing
Yes.
Why does the Gemara call it it's like it says like the Rabbanim, they all said it should be Rabbanim. There was like that one that I thought that said
right.
Why is like compiling the Gemara already?
Right. So it's like Josh Lazari says like this is a proof for the Ashkenazim. Last week we had 3 minority opinions that said the bracha should be avarabah. The Rabbanan said avat olam. Why did the Rabbanan say you should say avat olam? Not a braita. Why did the Rabbanan pick that terminology? Someone's got to know. Why would the Rabbanan prefer to say Ahavat Olam instead of Ahava Rabbah?
The Romans or whoever didn't want to kill us when they read the. Isn't that a lot of
No, I'm just talking about the difference between Ahavat Olam and Ahava
they
Rabbah.
wanted to like, oh, we love the whole world and not just the Jews.
Maybe. Oh, you're saying Ahavat Olam.
Referencing like this sometimes like more like
Okay,
it says,
okay,
like,
okay.
Nahum instead of like I don't know.
Okay, it's like censorship. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
The Gemara gave us an answer. Maybe your answer is right, but this is not the answer the Gemara said. The Gemara said because it's quoting a pasuk from Yirmiyahu that says Ahavat Olam Avtich. It's just quoting a pasuk. So if you're going to say a beracha, the way to do it, the way to establish the beracha is by quoting a pasuk. The pasuk is Ahavat Olam, so we say Ahavat Olam. And then Tosfot says, okay, so what we'll do is we'll say Ahava Rabbah in the morning and we'll say Ahavat Olam in the evening. But the Sfaradim say, what are you talking about? The Gemara said Ahavat Olam, so we say Ahavat Olam. So now your question is, so why does the Gemara continue with this Ahava Rabbah? The answer is it's continuing with the opinion of the Tanna Kama, which is that one minority, which is not one, but it's the individual opinion, whereas the Rabbanan disagree. So it's right now it's just following according to that opinion, but you're correct that this would all hinge back on that one machloket. Yes.
Is this can you learn from this to say that we can cut tefillah short if you're gonna like learn Torah after tefillah?
Okay, excellent question. This does come to show you that if there are other priorities, there are times where you cut your tefillah short. Yes, there's definitely precedent for that. The Kohanim doing the service in the Beit HaMikdash would not have a full shacharit service. They would not. And it's not just they would do things faster. They would actually cut out brachot. They wouldn't say certain things. There's no Baruch Shamar. I mean, even Baruch Shamar is not anywhere in the. There's no source of Yishtabach and Baruch Shamar in the Gemara. You don't see it, which is very interesting. But even so, like the tefillah really starts with Berachot Kriyat Shema. They're only saying one of them, and they're not doing a full Amidah. So yes, there's definitely precedent for it. Nowadays, we don't really break off the structure of tefillah. We don't, but you see the precedent for it.
What about like the 15-minute Tachton on Monday?
It's a good question. It's just you need someone to do a siyum or something. I have seen in some synagogues where Monday, Thursday, they say the Vayavors and then they skip they don't say Behurachum, they just go to Hapatech HaBitshva, they just go straight to the end. I have seen that. We brought this up to Rabban Chaim. Rabban Chaim says the opposite. He says Behurachum and he thinks it's more important. So if you're going to skip something, you should skip the Vayavor, say the Behurachum, but we say it. Look, the truth is, if you look around Monday and Thursday, you have a few people saying it from the minhagim that I go to. I don't want to speak negative, chas v'shalom. You always have some people saying it. You also have some people who get to sit down, some people to go take a break, which maybe isn't always the worst thing. Give people a few minute break. But yeah, really you should be focused and you should pray. But what you're praying for is for Ribono Shel Olam to forgive us, to pray. So I understand that it's hard. But be thankful it's only twice a week. I guess you could have had it every single day of the week. But yeah, it's a fair point. I have seen so many that cut out the Monday, Thursday. Tachanun Rabban Chaim was not a fan of that at all. Okay, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I now want to focus on the Aseret HaDibrot and a very important topic. Okay, this is going to be something that when we read Aseret HaDibrot and Parashat Vayetchanan, and we read Aseret HaDibrot and Parashat Yitro, it's important to be very familiar with this Gemara because we're now going to learn about the importance, or maybe the relevant importance, or of Ten Commandments. Let's go. Ten Commandments. Let's continue. Okay. The Korin Aseret HaDibrot. They read Aseret HaDibrot. Shema, they say the Shema, v'hayim shamoa, vayomer, emet v'yatziv, it's a beracha afterwards, va'avodah, their whole amidah is only the beracha va'avodah, u'berkat kohanim, the beracha berkat kohanim, which I said there's different opinions of what that is, okay? Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, as Ilan mentioned, we don't say the Ten Commandments in our tefillah. We go straight into, we say the beracha of Kriyat Shema, and we say Shema Yisrael. We don't say Aseret HaDibrot. But Shmuel says, Af bigulin, Bikshu likrotken. Outside of the Beit HaMikdash, they wanted to establish that they should read the Aseret HaDibrot every morning. Bikshu likrotken. There was a request and said, one time I went to the Beit HaMikdash, I saw the Kohanim before they said Shema Yisrael, they read the Ten Commandments. I want to do that also. Let's do that. In our Beit Knesset, we want to do that also. They asked, what happened? They wanted to do it. Ela shekevar bitlum. The rabbis decided to abolish this. Mipnei taromet haminim. Because of the grievance of the heretics. How do they translate that on the art scroll? The arguments of the heretics, which means the heretics were using this against us. What were they saying? There was a group of people that were saying the Torah is not important anymore. You know what's important? The Ten Commandments. Yeshu came and said, you don't have to keep the whole Torah. You only have to keep the Ten Commandments. There's this belief that the Torah is no longer necessary. You don't have to keep everything. You only have to keep the Ten Commandments. And you know, it's a popular idea. Imagine I told you instead of having to do kosher, you don't have to keep kosher. It's fine. You don't have to, all of these things that from the Torah, Shatnez is fine. Tefillin, you don't have to do it. Mezuzah, you don't have to do it. Tzedakah, you don't have to do it. You just have to keep the Ten Commandments. So let's say it was a popular belief, and this is what Yeshu and the students of Yeshu were saying. So what happened is they said, you see, look in your tefillah yourself. Every morning, what do? You say 10 commandments in Shema Yisrael. You yourself, in your Sidur, are proving that the 10 commandments are more important than the rest of the Torah. This is what started to happen. So the rabbi saw that by reading the Aseret HaDibrot every morning, they were feeding into this argument of the minim, that the 10 commandments are more important than the rest of the Torah. They said that that's not the case, and they abolished it from us reading it every morning. They said, no, we are not going to read the Aseret HaDibrot every morning, because if we read the Aseret HaDibrot every morning, people are going to think that that's more important than the rest of the Torah, which is what the students of Yeshu were saying, and that's not the case.
By the way,
Hold on. Sorry, we're right in the middle of it. I have to hold off on the questions until we get through this. Tani Nami Achi, we learned this in a Beraita also. Rabbi Natan says, Bigvulin bikshu lekrot ken. Outside of the Beit HaMikdash, they decided they were going to read 10 commandments every morning. But the rabbis of the time abolished it because they saw that there was arguments of the minim, the heretics were bringing forward, and this was feeding into their argument, so they stopped. So Rabbi Barachana wanted to establish this custom in the city of Surah, the country of Surah, to say the 10 commandments every morning. Rav Chasta said to him, no, we don't do this. The 10 commandments might be important, but they're not any more important than the rest of the Torah. And if you read it every morning, then what you're doing is you're saying that this is more important than the rest of the Torah, and it's not. It's not. Amemar wanted to establish this in the city of Narda. Rav Asher told him, we're not going to do it. You saw that there was multiple requests to read the 10 commandments in different places, but the rabbis of the time kept saying, we do not treat the 10 commandments any differently. Mr. Akimian, I have a question. Auctioning. Oh, okay. Auctioning, I'm not going to bother you. But I have a question about our custom, community custom. Parashat Yitro, Aliyat Shishi is 10 commandments. You sell it for $1 million. Before we get up for the Aliyah, do we tell everyone to stand? Do we tell everyone to sit? Do we not say anything? What do we do? Oh, Sadeh Levi.
In the movie of 54, I go to them, it was not big that Shabbat. Mr. Basalam in honor of Mr. Sadeh Levi said, and in two places in Basharim and we stand up for the Vayavor and Aseret HaDibrot.
Okay, wow.
I'm telling you, Mr. Hakimian, Mr. Basalam, I want you to announce every minyan.
I wish I got this on the recording. Hold on.
If they don't listen to you, then you tell me, I'm going to tell the rabbi, I told you to announce very loud.
Wow.
I had to tell them that's what Mr. Basalam said.
Okay, so one more time. Sorry for the recording. Say one more time for the recording.
This was a few years ago. I was a junior Gabba in the Kanisa, and I see late Mr. Sadeh Levi, Mr. Edu and Danny Levi's father, late, and Mr. Basalian talking in the lobby of 54. And that Shabbat was Aseret HaDibrot, and I go to them, Mr. Basalian, what is the minhag of our community to stand up? What do we stand up for Aseret HaDibrot? Mr. Basalian looks at Mr. Levi led Mr. Sadiq Levi and said, "This Sadiq Shoma b'Yinfash," and you tell him. And he says, on behalf of him, we both telling you as a gabbai, you should announce for two places in the Torah, one for Vayavor, when it's the Tanit Sibur, and for Aseret HaDibrot, Alan, I want you to announce in Kanisa is our minhag to stand up.
Oh.
And once in one of the minyanim, they said, Alan, don't say anything. I went to myself, I said, no, you made a mistake. I want you to announce as our minhag to stand up and don't be shy, don't be shy.
Okay.
So they're announcing it and they're very proud. It's a minhag of the community we have.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So now you're learning all the tricks. Okay. This is why. Okay, you have to give me an opportunity to say this. Okay. We heard it from the source. Now I want to elaborate on this. It's a very important discussion here. And if you're watching the recording, you see me twice. Here's the important concept here. We just learned in our Gemara, this source, Masechet Berachot, Daf Yud Bet, Amud Aleph, is the source that needs to be discussed when we talk about this question. Standing up for the Aseret HaDibrot, when we read on Parashat Yitro, and when we read it on Shavuot morning, we read it. We also read it on Parashat Vayetchanan. So we read it 3 times a year. Parashat Yitro, Parashat Vayetchanan, and Shavuot. 3 times a year we read it. Do we stand, do we not? So we just heard Mr. Akimian says it's the community custom, and this is what our leaders tell us. Okay? The Rambam, Maimonides, in a Teshuvah, writes that it's a terrible minhag to stand for Aseret HaDibrot. It's a terrible minhag to stand for Aseret HaDibrot. Why? You know why. Tell me why. From our Gemara. Clearly, there was many communities that loved and wanted to read the Aseret HaDibrot every day. There was a group that said, I want to do it in Surah. Another one said, I want to do it in Nahada. This one says, I want to do it here. But the rabbis decided there's a benefit of reading Aseret HaDibrot every day, but then there's a tremendous scare, a risk. What's the risk? That people think this part is more important than the rest of the Torah. People think that I only have to keep this and I don't have to keep the rest. So the rabbis said, we're not going to say Aseret HaDibrot and Tefillot every day, especially once the Talmidei Yeshu came and started saying, this is the only thing. We have a new Mashiach came, and Yeshu says you only have to keep these 10 commandments. This is the way it's explained. So especially when that thought was out there, they decided we can't feed into this. The entire Torah, from the Bet of Bereshit to the Lamed of the Enei Kol Yisrael, in its entirety is important. And if you're missing even one letter, one yud anywhere in the Torah, the whole thing is pasul. So why do you want to stand for one part and not the next part? People are going to think, says the Rambam, you stood up for this part because this part is more important than the next part and the part before it. This is why the Rambam says people who have a custom to stand, wrong custom, they should stop it. Okay. Now what's the problem? The problem is so many communities have this custom. It's not just our custom. Many, many, many communities have this custom. So how do you deal with this? You ask Rav Ovadia Yosef. Rav Ovadia Yosef says the following. He says, look, if there's a community they don't have a custom. Let's say you ask them, what should we do? And they say, we don't know. We asked our grandfathers, they don't know. There was no minhag. Some people stood, some people sat. We don't know. So Rav Ovadia Yosef says, for sure, don't stand. Because you don't have a custom to stand by. So follow the Rambam and don't stand, because we want to show that this part of the Torah is any more important than the rest. But let's say you have a custom. Let's say you have a custom to stand. Should you break against the custom? Should you be the one guy who sits down like this, make sure everyone knows that I'm going to be the one guy, I'm going to go right on top of the bima and sit on the bima? Like, should you be that one guy? So the Rav Yosef says, look, you also have to respect the minhag of the makom. There's a minhag here. People have a minhag. They have this tradition. You can't be the one that say, like, I don't care, I'm going to sit. Or if the community has a custom, if the community decides we want to end this custom, it's one thing. But if the community wants to keep the custom, Rav Yosef says you have to keep the custom. So what should we do? So here's what we should do. I'll tell you. Number one, you should explain to the people, ladies and gentlemen, Chayeshan, you're standing up. Keep in mind, this part of the Torah is not any more important than the last part. It's not any more important than the next part. It's all equal importance. We're standing up now to remember Ma'amad Har Sinai. We stood up at Har Sinai. We heard Hashem's voice. It was an experience that everyone felt. This Ma'amad Har Sinai, it was our own eyes, our own ears, our own hearts that felt it. So to commemorate this experience in history, we stand up. The whole Torah is important. So this is number one. Explain it. Number two, Elon's trick. if you give the aliyah to the rabbi, then you're really doing 2 in 1. Everyone's standing up for the rabbi anyway. But that doesn't get away from the fact that people know you're standing up for the Ten Commandments. I think, personally, the most important thing is to educate. Educate. If you have the minhag, keep to your minhag. But just simply say, we stand up, it's our minhag. Another thing that they say was the question you were getting at. Don't stand up for Anochi, but stand up from the beginning of the Aliyah. So what you see is people are sitting in the middle of the Aliyah, then all of a sudden when it gets to Anochi, everyone stands up. That is showing, hey, this part is more important than the line right before. But if from the beginning of the Aliyah, everyone was standing, it's like, look, the whole thing is not Aseret HaDibrot. You're reading Psukim before, that's not part of the Ten Commandments. You don't start the Aliyah on the Ten Commandments, you start the Aliyah before. So if you're standing up for before, you're even showing, I'm standing up, but I'm not only standing for the Aseret HaDibrot, I'm standing up for the part before it also. So that's another aspect. So essentially, there's a lot of discussion around this. And what you have to be clear on is our Gemara right here. The Aseret HaDibrot is a very famous, powerful, emotional section. The Kohanim would read it every morning. It is important. And they wanted to read it. But once they saw that sometimes doing more ends up hurting you. And this is why they say less is more. If I tell you this part of the Siddur is more important than the rest, so now what's going to happen? No one's going to read the rest of the Siddur. If I tell you this part of the Torah is more important than the rest, what's going to happen? No one's going to read the rest of the Torah. So less is more. And that's what Chachamim realized. So they abolished the practice to say Aseret HaDibrot every day. And based on this, Gemara and Berachot 11B-12A, the Rambam says, don't stand up when you do the Aseret HaDibrot. And so based on this, Rav Yosef says, if you don't have a minhag, don't stand. If you have a minhag, stand from the beginning of the Aliyah. So you're not differentiating between one line and the next, but you're standing from the beginning of the Aliyah. And if you can, give the Aliyah to a rabbi. But if you do that, then your rabbi is causing you to lose $1 million. Unless, right? Because then it's a high auction part. Unless okay, even better. Now you get the fundraising and you get the everyone stands to the eye. And then on top of that, I think it's very simple. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to read the Ten Commandments. Please be quiet. Please pay attention. We're going to stand because that's our community minhag. Not because it's more important. It's not more important, but to commemorate Ma'amad Har Sinai. When we stood at Har Sinai, we're going to stand out to commemorate it. So this way, you're keeping the minhag, and you're also working within the concern that the Rambam had of our Gemara, where we're explaining that it's not more important. This is a fundamental Gemara. You have a job now. Everyone in this room, look at me. Look at me. You have a job. You have a job. You have a job. We're going to have Parashat Va'etchanan coming up. We have actually Shavuot coming up first. We have Parashat Yitro coming up. Every time we have that, I want you to say, do you know what it says in Gemara Masechet Berachot, Daf Yud Bet Amud Aleph? It says that there were communities that wanted to read the Ten Commandments every day, but the rabbi said not to because you think that part is more important than the rest. It's not. That's why when we're going to stand up now, it's to fulfill the community custom, but it's not any more important than the rest. You have your job. That's it. Now we fulfilled the obligation of education. The Rambam was concerned about our Gemara of education, but if we have the education, then we get to keep our minhag and to have the education. Okay, I know there's a lot. I know this is heavy, so let's discuss some questions. But first, Mr. Akimian, you want to have any comments on this? Make sense?
I'm going to educate other Yabbaim now.
There you
Try to educate the Kamal that exactly as Rabbi Adam said, that it's better that they know.
Very
It's
good.
our custom, but it's no different with any parts of
That's it. That's it. It's just very simple. As you're doing the auctioning, it's our custom. We stand to remember Ma'amad Har Sinai. Okay, questions. We have a lot. Yes.
This only have instruction in that, or also.
The Kohanim would continue saying it. In the Beit HaMikdash, they would continue saying it the whole time. After the Beit and while the Kohanim were saying it, there would be communities that wanted to say it. Even while they wanted to say it at the same time. But they saw that it was once we had a Taromet Haminim, which means once there was a sect of heretics that came up with this belief that the Ten Commandments is the only thing that's important, then they went against it. It's not like us doing this really caused it. It didn't cause this belief. There was a group of people who left the Torah, And the way they were following is they said there's a new Messiah that comes and says you only have to keep the Ten Commandments. And then they were using our Sidur to missionize and come and say, look, it's in your own Sidur, this is the only thing you have to keep. And that was becoming very problematic, so they struck it and they said, we're not going to do this. Yosef, question.
The inference is not 10%. Should we stand up to the whole?
Shouldn't we stand up for the whole, or shouldn't we sit down for the whole? Yes.
Either or.
Exactly. Congratulations. This is the opinion of the Rambam. That's how I started. But the Rambam says it's a terrible minhag to stand up just for the Ten Commandments. This is exactly what the Rambam says. Exactly what the Rambam says. But communities have this custom, and it's not just our community. Communities across the world have this custom.
The leaders of the communities could, agree amongst themselves and make a joint announcement. We're canceling this.
Of course they can, but they also can choose not to, right? There are so many communities that have this custom to stand, and they all know the opinion of the Rambam. So why? So we gave the ways that they're able to do this is because it's making it clear. It's not that this part is any more important. The truth of the matter is, the Gemara here is talking about saying it every day. We're not saying it every day. We're reading it, and when we read it, we want to stand. It's not like that's what they were doing. It doesn't say how they all wanted to stand up, but the rabbi said sit. That's not what it says. If that's the case, then we would have. If the Gemara said that they all wanted to stand up for 10 commandments, but the rabbi said no, don't stand. You have to sit. Then I myself would say, even if the community has this custom, look, it's against the Gemara. The Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says they wanted to read it every morning, and then the rabbi said, don't do that because that's feeding in. Now, I think you were saying the Kohanim. There are some people that in the Sidur that they read the 10 Commandments every morning. Anyone do that? Anyone reads the 10 Commandments every morning? Okay, it's in what? Yeah, I've also heard of people that read it every day. There's nothing wrong with me reading it every day. The problem is when it's in the established tefillah, because then people were able to say, look in your Sidur. This you yourself say this is the only thing that's important. If one guy wants to say it himself, individual wants to say himself, you could say whatever you want. If someone wants to say Shir LaMa'alot every day, Shir LaMa'alot is more important than the rest of the Tehillim. No, this is just what I want to read. But if there was this establishment of like every morning we're going to read only this part of the Torah, and then there's others that say, by the way, the Ashkenazim, to your point, the Ashkenazim, they stand up for other parts also. I think I needed the Ashkenazi rabbi back. I think they stand up for Az Yashir, if I'm not mistaken. I think they stand up for Vaya Avor also. The Ashkenazim also stand up for that. I think that's another way that they answer this question. The way that they answer this question is, look, Harambam, your concern is that if you stand up for this part, people are going to think this part is better than the rest of the Torah. But as Mr. Akimian said, this isn't the only part we stand up for. We also stand up for Vaya Avor. And I'm pretty sure the Ashkenazim also stand up for Az Yashir, or they stand up for some other things also. Oh, that's another thing. There's some Ashkenazim that stand up for everything. From beginning to end. Yes. Why? It's a that says who's talking?
Rabbi, I also regarding the 10 Commandments, I mentioned to you the Sidur that I have from here, with the Chidah's commentary, and actually in the Shema Yisrael, it has 10 Commandments, sort of like as kavanot, embedded within the Shema Yisrael, within each word. Like this is what it's referring to. So it's just interesting. Like we don't say commandments every day, but it's sort of can be like derived out of Shema Yisrael.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So there is a lot of importance in the Aseret HaDibrot. It's the time that we heard Hashem's voice. It's not to say it's not an important part. The Kohanim would read it every day. And in the Gvulim, meaning the cities, they did want to read it every day because it is an important part. The problem is when you start thinking that now this is more important and the rest of the Torah is not important. So then you see how you're actually doing some damage. I have a lot of comments here. Mr. Ben Azizi is a Kohen. I thought during the time of korbanot, there wasn't tefillah. So Mr. Azizi, during the times of the korbanot, maybe you Kohanim didn't have to do the full tefillah, which is what we're saying. You're right. You're right that we didn't have for always. We didn't, like I said, David HaMelech didn't have the same Amidah structure that we had. The Amidah was created by the Anshe Knesset Agdolah. It was structured. So Mr. Azizi, you're correct that there was the tefillah, the Sidur as we know it, didn't exist always, especially when they had Quran, but their tefillah still existed. Even Avraham Avinu, it says he would pray. Avraham Avinu prayed. Yitzchak Avinu prayed. Yaakov Avinu prayed. Everyone prayed. It's just that the formulation of the tefillot are different. Now, on top of that, the Kohanim who were doing the avodah were not praying because they were busy with the korbanot, right? But to answer your question, when you said, I thought during the korbanot there wasn't tefillah, the answer is there was, it just wasn't structured the same way as us, okay? Very good.
Thank you.
Here we have Daniel Cohen. You could also say you're standing up for the person saying the Berachot Torah. Yes, you can call up the rabbi. Cody Cohen is not Ashkenazi, but married to one. Baruch Hashem. Now I know how to ask my questions. Yeah, they stand for Ad Yashir. Cody, do you stand for anything else? Not you. They stand. Yeah, Cody's saying they stand for Az Yashir. He's been to Ashkenazi Minyan. For Az Yashir, they stand. Exactly. I knew it. So these are things where there's another explanation. Like, what are you worried? You're worried that by standing from Aseret HaDibrot, people are going to say this is more important than the rest of the Torah. What are you talking about? I also stand for Ve'avor. I also stand for Az Yashir. There might be one or two other parts. Cody, let me know if you could think of anything else. But they stand for also. And then beside the point that there are some that they stand up for everything. And I believe there's a pasuk that Hashem is talking to Moshe Rabbeinu, and he says, "Ve'ata po amod imadi." You stand here with me. Oh, just as Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was studying Torah from Hashem, he was standing. So too, when we are studying Torah, when we're hearing the Torah, we should stand. What are the Sfaradim say on that? No, amod doesn't mean stand. It means stay. Meaning all of the Bnei Israel are going to leave Har Sinai, but you stay up here with me. Atapo amod imadi. You stand here. It doesn't mean stand. It means stay. That's why all it means when you're listening to Torah, you have to focus on the Torah. Yes. Question?
Our community has like WhatsApp newsletters if we want, so they can end this custom tomorrow.
Yeah.
Suddenly this causes so much controversy. I personally am not understanding why would they not just end it?
Very good. Okay, excellent question. Okay, so Mr. Akimian, I want to give you the opportunity to answer this question. Okay, so I'm gonna do this because I think you can answer, and I'll also answer. But Mr. Akimian, Mr. Vasalian, Junior, not Aghay Vasalian, he's Aghay Vasalian, is asking a question of, he says, this is very simple. Let's just change the minhag. No problem. We send a WhatsApp, we have religious council. We send out a message saying, ladies and gentlemen, in light of the Rambam, we want to follow the Rambam. We don't want there to be any confusion. So you know what? We're not going to stand up anymore. Mr. Akimian, what do you think about it? If, let's say, religious council made that statement, what would you think?
I think, my personal opinion, the elders of the community, they're not going to be that happy. Because all these years you have the custom from Mashal and the new generation, and soon they're going to change other minhagim. I don't think the elders, and there's some rabbis that don't want names join the community. The first thing they said, very, very important to follow your customs. They are very valuable. So I don't think personally it's a good idea to change our customs. We should proud of our minhagim. It's our minhagim.
Very good.
They teach the next generations.
Okay, so Mr. Aghay Vasalian Jr., I think there's importance of tradition, right? If you just listen to Fiddler on the Roof, there's importance of tradition. This minhagim is what keeps us alive. Really, there's a lot of things that keeps us alive. If you have a minhag that is wrong, then you get into the discussion of getting rid of it. But what we're discussing here is that there's enough ways to work within the minhag. Number one, it doesn't say that you can't stand. It says that you shouldn't read it as part of the services every day, which is not what we're doing. And then, like we said, you're standing up for other parts. And then you stand up from the beginning of the part. And you make an announcement. And you send up a rabbi for the aliyah if you can. So there's enough things to say, look, we don't have to throw out this minhag. I am making this more of a controversy than it is. I mean, well, here's what I tell you I've seen in certain minyanim, everyone stands. There's one person who decides he wants to sit. There are like two people that decide they want to sit. Leave me alone, I want to sit. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate when you have a group of people and you're praying in their minyan to decide that you want to kneel while they're playing the Star Spangled Banner. Like, for example, it's like, what are you protesting in the middle of the community as a custom to stand? It's not wrong. It's not wrong. We have enough defenses. Yes, the Rambam was one opinion that we respect. And to respect the Rambam, we have all of these other considerations that we have in fact. But the minhag is very strong throughout all of Israel. So to answer your question, we can, and Mr. Magrafta said, we can abolish this, but we don't have to. And on the opposite, when we have minhagim, we should maintain it. We should maintain our identity. We should be proud of who we are. We should be proud of this tradition because this is what has kept us alive. And we're not interested in throwing things out. Because you throw this out, well, you might throw something else out. No, we should keep our minhagim strong. Okay, interesting fact about Kori Kohen direct message. Another fun fact about Ashkenazim. We speak about the 2 berachot after Shema for Arvit. Ashkenazim outside of Israel have to say a 3rd bracha. Okay, something interesting I thought. Yeah. They say Yira Nenu. It's a whole thing. There's a Tosfot about this. Interesting fact. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Question.
You just want to make the point, like polishing the how we polish it. Why would they let the Kohanim say it?
Yeah. It's a good question. So like, I think part of it may be what Richard, what you were saying about it. It also has to do with the time period. It could be the minim. The minim really picked up right at the tail end of the Beit HaMikdash. The minim were after the Beit HaMikdash, right around that time. So it could be there was no overlap. So maybe I misspoke before. The minim time period was after the times of the Beit HaMikdash, or right around the end of it. Yes, question?
So the reason that we want to take advantage, why do we give kind of an importance to Shmoneh Esrei in the case? When it was some like Tfilat HaShlomim, you only say Shmoneh Esrei twice.
Okay, excellent question. So now, once we say that by saying something, you give it more relative importance than other things, so now, like Adam, what you're saying is like, hold on a second, I want to look at everything, like Amidah. But there's a big difference. The difference is there was no movement that started and said, hey, ladies and gentlemen, you can throw out everything of religion except for the Amidah. So there was a movement at the time that was getting behind only the 10 Commandments. And it's a real thing. So this is a very, very important concept. That sometimes there's something that's fine. And then there could be a group of people or someone that comes and ruins it for everyone. And it's a valid point. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a tree. It's a beautiful tree. Everything is a great tree. And then you have a group of people come and they make a cult and they start praying to this tree. And they bow down to this tree. And they start serving this tree. And they start doing disgusting things to this tree. Eventually, you can't say like, well, it was my tree first. Like there is, I mean, I guess you can say get off my property. But there's a Rashi and Parashat Shofetim. You know what? I'm going to show you this, and then we're going to end it off. Okay? I'm going to show you this. I'm going to end off because I think it's an important point to just wrap this up. Safaria, Parashat Shoftim. Lo takim lecha matzeva asher saneh Hashem Elokecha. Whoa! What is your bar mitzvah parasha? You just know it. Asher saneh. I just want to jump to this to get there faster. So it's a pasuk that says, not here. Where is it? This is embarrassing. Here we go. Okay. Pasuk. V'lo takim lecha metzeva. You should not have any monuments. Asher saneh Hashem Elokecha. Hashem hates monuments. Okay. What's the problem with this pasuk? It's a pasuk in Shoftim telling us don't make monuments because Hashem hates these monuments. Yaakov Avinu made monuments. In the Torah it says that he made one. So there's others in Tanakh that made one. So look at Rashi here, commentary. Rashi says, an altar of stones and an altar of earth he had commanded you to make. This, however, he hates, because it was a religious ordinance amongst the Canaanites. And although it was pleasing to him in the days of our patriarchs, now he hates it, because these Canaanites made it an ordinance of their idolatrous character. It's a very important Rashi here that says that the concept of a matzeva, when Abraham did it, Hashem loved it. Yitzchak did it, Hashem loved it. Yaakov did it, Hashem loved it. But then, in the times of the Bnei Israel coming out, they went to Canaan. The people of Canaan used this as avodah zarah. So now Hashem says, "I hate it." But I thought you loved it. I loved it then. But now that people have perverted it, I hate it. Same concept. The same concept of the Ten Commandments. There was a movement to say that this is the only important part of the Torah. So now it's like something that was so good becomes hated, and it has to become abolished. You see how just because something is good at one time, people can pervert and ruin things. People can ruin it for everyone, and that's in fact what happened. Okay, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to stop. One thing, we got this very important sugya. You now have homework. Your job is Parashat Yitro, Parashat Vayetchanan, and Shavuot. You have to remember this. Gemara Masechet Berachot, Daf Yud Bet Amud Aleph, and you have to teach it. So this way, we'll have that education. Hazak Baruch, Hazak Baruch.